Remember, this is the man who runs the intelligence entity for Southeast Asia telling him this, so they fired.
And how many did you lose there?
2.
And how did what? I mean, they didn't come in and clean, so you're down to 11 now.
Down to 11. They actually had called in. We lost 2 men, and but we had to return fire on the aircraft, shooting out the rear of the aircraft rather than shooting at the pilots because we didn't want to hurt our own guys. You know, we.
Did the plane go down?
No. We shot. Look, from the smoke and everything, it looked like maybe some hydraulics were shot out on it or something. We weren't sure. At any rate, they left the area, but they called in some air support to drop on that LZ.
Bombs?
Drop napalms on it. So we got out of the area quick, and as we were exiting, the sky lit up in the LZ.
But until you got out, you'd lost 2 men. Then you had to leave them behind.
Had to leave them behind, using the slap packs so that they'd never be identified.
Right. Okay. So there's 11 out.
Mm-hmm.
What did you decide to do then?
Well, we decided we would be best to try to make it across country ourselves. Trust no one. And that's the way these guys operated. You know, we had some of the best on that team. I was just a kid. I was a victim of circumstances in there, and I mean, I had never engaged the enemy before I had gotten on Team Red Rock. But I engaged the enemy almost hourly after I was with Team Red Rock. We traversed across the country going toward South Vietnam, toward the Cambodia-Vietnamese border.
You're still in Cambodia.
Still in Cambodia, trying to make it to the border. And you have to understand, Cambodia was a refuge for the North Vietnamese. They could come into South Vietnam, they could attack, and then they could pull back across that border. And we weren't allowed to come across that border into Cambodia to attack them, to take them out. So they could resupply, they could rest, recuperate, R&R, whatever, and then come back in. It was a very difficult position.
And that's why Nixon wanted to deneutralize them, right?
Sure.
So you could go after them in Cambodia.
Well,
and maybe the
so
Cambodian countries,
sure.
could go after them too, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so how many kilometers or how many miles did you have to go to get to the border?
Well, we didn't have maps. We had no idea. We know that, well, it was from Phnom Penh all the way to the border. That's 200 miles. It took. We were out for weeks trying to work our way through the jungles. We'd come across some teams, routine patrols, and we'd either evade them or we'd engage them. One of the two.
No, how about eating? How about food?
Food was pretty easy to get. You know, as a survival, we'd come across villages too, and we get food from the villages. But
you must have shocked the heck out of the villagers then, huh?
No, we were still dressed as sappers.
I see. Yeah. But I mean, you know, you're a white man, right?
Well, you know, we were.
Did you have slanted eyes?
We were thin, and we did have team members who, the one called the Kid was CIA, and he was Vietnamese. So you know, it wasn't that we didn't go into the villages ourselves. We'd stay back in the shadows of the forest area, and the Kid would go in and talk to him and get the food. And so you know, it wasn't.
Did he survive, the Kid?
No, the Kid did not survive.
Okay, but okay, so you made your way across maybe 200 miles. And how close were you?
Within 4 miles of the border.
Oh, you're kidding.
And then we saw some F-4s circling the area. Looked like they were trying to get into an area, but there was a AAA artillery site, anti-aircraft artillery, firing on the F-4s. And you know, we still had some munitions left that we could take them out with, some C4 packs. So we decided, hey, you know, we'll just take this out. And that was probably our greatest mistake. We didn't realize that we were in the middle of almost a battalion-size contingency of North Vietnamese.
Battalion size being how many troops?
I have no idea. I know that as we counted troops and as we passed encampments, easily over 2,000.
And here's 11 men trying to survive 4 miles from the border, and you decided to take this anti-aircraft.
Blew it to hell and back, too.
I guess you did. But that was a mistake because that brought a lot of undue and unnecessary pressure on you. And obviously they started looking around for, hey, where'd this come from, right?
Yeah, and as we'd walk across paddies, the patrols would be coming one way, and, you know, we dressed as sappers, you know, didn't have U.S. munitions with us. All of our munitions were Chinese AKs and so forth. So we would be traversing one side of the paddy while this other team would come across, and Kid would be there and salute them, you know, and hail them, and we just keep walking, you know. But however, one time we came right up to the forest area and we came face to face, and here's this kind of face looking directly into a North Vietnamese lieutenant, and we were in trouble.
Obviously. Did you go into combat then, or did you try to?
Went right into combat then.
Oops, let me see. Where's that AK? Whatever. Huh?
They didn't have enough bullets in those for me. My way used to tell me, I was a white knuckle firer because I'd hold that trigger down and melt that barrel. The clips just weren't big enough for me.
So you had hand to hand at that point?
I had hand-to-hand. I'd melted barrels. We actually ran out of ammunition. We had to overtake other patrols to restock ourselves. I mean, these guys were good. They were the best, Ted. They were true American heroes, doing their job as best they could.
Don't you think there's someday, Chip, that we can honor these men, but there's no way of knowing their last names, is there?
Well, Pop knows a couple of them, and I think that someday he may be willing to do that. He does have severe neurological problems. He's able to talk. He knows me. He remembers what went on, but it's affected his motor movements, and he's not willing to do anything he thinks that will endanger his family.
Can't blame him for that.
Not at all. No.
And he's still alive. And where is he? What state is he in?
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Good old Okie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So what happens? You were captured?
We were captured. We spent 92 days in captivity, being moved from point to point in camps. We were actually interrogated by Chinese and Soviet officers. It was never Vietnamese officers. The Vietnamese were there, Vietnamese soldiers in the encampments, because it was theirs. But the actual linguists and interrogators and those who performed the torture were Chinese and Soviet.
How many do you have there now in your team?
I believe 10, maybe 9 ended up in captivity.
So you lost 2 along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And where did they incarcerate you?
They started moving us in the jungles along the border area, not knowing that we were only 4 kilometers from the border. We just know we were being moved. We were incarcerated in one small encampment, then we were moved to a larger encampment, and this had been used in the past, you could tell, because they had cages set up in a semicircular area, and they had 3 posts set up, and they took 2 of us immediately. They stripped us of our clothing, broke this foot, my right foot, so that we couldn't try to escape.
They break everybody's foot?
Broke everyone's. Well, they didn't break. One of the guys was already unconscious, and they didn't break his foot, but they broke all of our feet, 1 foot anyhow. Stripped us of our clothing and put us in these cages. Two of our guys they put on the posts, and we thought that they would be tortured right away, but they weren't. They put them on those posts so that we could watch them as they suffered up there. They weren't given food. They weren't given water. The rest of us were given some water and some food on occasion.
And when you say put them on the post, they tied them to a post out there where you could see them from your cages. Mm-hmm. And who interrogated you? Say a Russian and a Chinese officer?
The Soviet officer seemed to be in charge of this particular camp, and the Chinese officer his cohort was actually the man who administered the torture. Once that started.
Do you want to go into the torture at all, or would you
really
prefer not to? Yeah, I thought so. How about how many men were tortured? Were you all tortured?
We were all tortured, and when it was all said and done, there were 3 of us alive. When we were finally released, I shouldn't even say released.
You were rescued, actually.
We were rescued by a Marine Recon Patrol, and boy, I'll tell you, I love those guys.
I guess you did.
All you Marine Recons out there, aces up, buddies. That's the only reason I'm alive today.
Well, so there are 3 of us survived. So 13 came out of the Cambodian airport. You lost 2 from friendly skies, mm-hmm. friendly fire. And then across the jungle, you lost 2 more, and now you're down to what, 8?
Had 8, and we ended up losing the Montagnard that was with us, that we'd pulled with us. he was ready to start squealing and tell who we were, so we decided loose lips sink ships from the old briefing days, so they just took him out. We took him out ourselves.
Okay, this is before you were captured then?
No, after we were captured.
Oh, did you? Okay.
We were bringing him back to put in front of that colonel before these guys did to that colonel what they intended to do to him.
Okay. Can I mention the colonel that you had a medal on his, a religious medal on his?
Our captain.
A captain had a religious medal on his, around his neck.
Had a St. Christopher medal. I think that's
right.
I'm not sure, the medal of travel
Catholic,
or something
yes.
like that.
And they, just if I can mention this, just one thing, one of the tortures that they did was skin him alive, right?
Skinned him alive, right.
In front of the rest of you.
Put him in a configuration like a cross as a Christian, and skinned him alive in front of us, held knives and bayonets to our temples, required us to watch it. If we closed our eyes or tried to turn our heads, they'd start pushing in.
God have mercy on his soul. Tragic. Then, so you're rescued, and there was a fight there at the camp between the Marines.
The Marines didn't know we were in the encampment. They came in. They were mapping the area for Lamson 719 was the mission number. They were just simply in there mapping the area, and they were told if they came across any prisoner of wars, do what you need to extract them. So they were actually found out by the guards, and a firefight ensued. Our guys won, and 3 of us were left alive after that. However, one of our guys from a Chinese officer had a stomach wound. That was pretty unfortunate. He was a good Kansas kid, you know. He had a stomach wound, and I was told when we were debriefed that he later died from that wound. We had gotten out of the cages and started running for the jungle, and I recall seeing one of the young Marines go down on a knee, level down on me, and I was running. My weight was on my right leg, and he shot a ricochet. It wasn't a full force bullet. A ricochet hit me in the leg, bent my leg backwards. I tumbled, and I'm also told that a grenade went off, and it hit me in the back of the head across here. Pretty good scar back there right now that rendered me unconscious and caused a lot of swelling on the brain. So I was air evac'd from Saigon. I was air evac'd into Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines.
Well, did the Marines, if he was firing at you, didn't realize you were an American?
We were American. They didn't know we were there.
And at what point were the Marines aware that they had some POWs on their hands?
Our team member that was shot in the stomach started yelling in English to them, and so they realized that there were some in there.
Good, okay.
So he saved our lives.
And so you came out, and you went over to Clark Air Force Base after that.
Right. And that when I finally came to later, within 3 days, that man from Saigon, Bill Colby, was there to debrief me. And at that point, he told me that I have 2 choices. I can work directly for the CIA, or I can stay with the military, which I've had such great experiences with at that point, and work under the operational control of the CIA. Well, you know, honestly, I figured, hey, you know, I've got this tour in Vietnam. I can stay in the States now. I never have to come back. I said, okay, I'll stay in the military, because with the CIA, I know I could go anywhere, you know. But I had a government commitment still, so I said, I'll stay with the Air Force. You guys can control my assignments. Little did I know that I'd spend more years back in that arena, working later for a company called Air America.
In the debriefing session, if you can tell us this, were you informed of the fact that as to who put the orders out that none of you should return, none of you should come back alive?
He told me that it was Nixon gave the order that no one can survive. And Bill said that when he got that order in, Haig and Kissinger disagreed with it, but the orders came from the commander-in-chief himself. So he had to plan the contingency as such. He said, but Sergeant Tatum, I planned it so that I knew you guys could overcome this obstacle.
The 2 mountain men.
That's right.
But
we just didn't have a contingency for the rest of it. Nothing you can do. When you have a United States Army colonel and United States Air Force colonel both become traitors to their country.
Where are these colonels today?
I don't know.
Okay. So much for that question.
That's the safe answer.
I wouldn't put money on that one. Okay. Anyway, so be it. Let's leave that as is. You come back, you go to work for the Air Force on a contingency plan to also work with the CIA?